Good afternoon, everyone joining us virtually and in person. My name is Beatriz Cantada. I'm the Director of Engagement for Diversity and Inclusion in the Institute Community Equity Office. Happy rainy Thursday. This is a welcomed rain, especially for folks in the North Shore, because we've been having a lot of forest fires and smoke. So this is a pleasant surprise. Normally I would be like, I want a sunny day, but rain is very much welcomed. So before we begin with our presenter, I do want to acknowledge some folks in the space with us, whether it's via Zoom or in person. So quickly want to thank my programming team, Paulina Wolf, Molly McInerney, and Alejandra Ramos. Without them, this would not be possible. So thank you so much to the programming team. I'd like to thank Rob from AV Services, again, helping us create this hybrid environment. And we have Wesley from MIT Video Productions, who's actually recording this presentation. So if you want to come back to view this recording, it will be available in about a week or so on our website. So that's an exciting new thing that we are offering this semester. So we want to thank our senior leadership support, without which we would not have this program. Provost Cindy Barnhart, Vice President for Equity and Inclusion, Carl Reed, and Associate Provost Paula Hammond, who's joining us via Zoom. So hi, Paula, thank you for joining us. Our colleagues at Lincoln Lab, our faculty hosts, we have John Fernandez from the Environmental Solutions Initiative and J. Philip Thompson from Department of Urban Studies and Planning. We also have our scholars joining us this afternoon, Justin Wilkerson, Christine Taylor Butler, Leslie Jonas, Janine Dawkins, and Jean-Luc Pierrit, all joining us virtually. Hi, scholars. Note that we will be recording this session. Friendly reminder, please stay muted, and live captioning is available. Subscribe to our newsletter, ico.mit.edu, if you'd like to hear more about our events and future presentations. So just so folks will know that we have two more presenters for the rest of this fall semester, and that would be Justin Wilkerson on December 5th and Meleko Mogosi on December 12th. Also, for those joining us virtually, we'd like to share a meal with you. So Paulina will be posting an Uber Eats link for you to be able to access for the next 3 days. So definitely please use that meal on us. Our presenter, Angélica Mayolo Obregón, returns for a second year, co-hosted by John Fernandez, a professor of building technology in the Department of Architecture and director of MIT's Environmental Solutions Initiative, and by J. Philip Thompson, who just showed up. Hi, he's joining us in person, and he's an associate professor in the Department of Urban Studies and Planning. He is also a former MLK scholar. Mayolo Obregón will continue to lead the Afro-Inter-American Forum on Climate Change, AIFCC, a forum that elevates the voices of Afro-descendant peoples in addressing climate action and biodiversity conservation, and it expands its network. Without further ado, I invite Angélica to join me on the stage or on the podium.
Thank you, Beatriz. And can you hear me well? So, thank you all for coming. So this morning, first of all, I want to thank my faculty host, Professor John Fernandez, the director of the MIT Environmental Solutions Initiative, and J. Phil Thompson, who honored me with his presence here today, and my coworker, Marcela Angel from the MIT Environmental Solutions Initiative. In these presentations, I want to show the results of the original research work that we have been doing from the MIT Environmental Solutions Initiative that have contributed to influence public policies for the protection of one of the most important ecosystems in the planet, how is the Chocó Biogeographic region. And it has direct connections with the role of Afro-descendants in conservation, because this region is populated mostly by Afro-descendant communities in the Central and South America, specifically in the Pacifico, who has done and played a key role as environmental guardians of those territories. And during this presentation also, I will show how the work of the MIT Environmental Solution Initiative throughout the Afro-Inter-American Forum on Climate Change support technically the city of Cali for the organization of the Biodiversity COP16 that we have a month ago. So we were working to support the city of Cali to provide technical support for the development of the preparation plan for COP16. It was a real great challenge because Cali has 7 months to prepare the city to host the Biodiversity COP16. Normally, a city has 2 years to prepare itself with the conditions to have a COP16. And the work that we did from the MIT Environmental Solution Initiative have 2 objectives. First of all, how to fulfill the UN requirements for a COP in terms of the negotiations activity that are happening in something that the United Nations language called Blue Zone, which are the place where the official negotiated debate about the policies that allowed to tackle the biodiversity loss, which is the main objective of the Biodiversity Convention. And the second, and most importantly for us, was to formulate the citizen participation strategy that were focused on promoting environmental awareness. What we really want to do with this COP is how to take advantage of have this great event to involve as much as possible this civil society to discuss about biodiversity, the importance of biodiversity, but also how it contributes for the progress of local communities and the Latin American countries. So during the last 7 months, I was supporting the Cali City Halls in 4 specific activities. The first one was conceptualizing the green zone. For those who are not familiar with the language of the Conference of the Parties, there are 2 important scenarios in a Conference of the Party. As I mentioned, the blue zone, which is the place where the countries negotiate policies, and the green zone, which is the space for the participation of the activism and the social society and the civil organizations. So what we created in Cali was an innovative models that intend to have a higher civil society participation throughout many activities. One of them was to have a strong cultural agenda. In my case, as a former Minister of Culture of Colombia, I consider that culture is a very strong mechanism to create nature awareness and how to mobilize the civil society to be involved in the environmental agenda. So we have a strong cultural agenda throughout the COP. We designed an educational complex to teach children about ecological consciousness. It was very important and a point of innovation in this COP, how we involve kids to change habits that allow environmental conservation. And we implemented an academic agenda with 11 national and international universities where we were discussing topics like restoration of oceans, peace with nature, financial mechanism for the implementation of the 23 biodiversity framework goals, and obviously the relation between biodiversity and climate change. What happened in Cali during those days? So because of this plan that we work, we achieved to have a very comprehensive agenda that allowed the participation of most of the civil society during the academic agenda, during the cultural agenda. But what was very important is we really guarantee that regardless the place of the city where you were located, or regardless of your socio-economic condition, you will be able to have some agenda specifically in terms of environmental education. And it allows to us to have different kind of spaces. Can you see in the image? So we have a very full-edge scenarios, mobilizing the local communities in all the areas of the city, in the northern part, in the west part, and we allow to become the city a benchmark for civil society participation during the COP16. As I mentioned, with a very strong cultural agenda that promote conservation of nature. Something what was very special was the COP for Kids, where we have an education focus on teaching subjects, including habits for water conservation and recycle. Also was very important to work with local entrepreneurship to use the COP system as a platform to make visible the innovative green businesses that we had in the region, and as a way to connect them with international markets. So with all of them, we achieved to have the biodiversity COP with the greatest citizen participation in history, which was something impressive, more than 1,100,000 people being involved in the different activities, the officials in the blue zone, but also most importantly, in the entire city, mobilizing local communities, presenting proposals that were taken into account for the official negotiations in the different spaces, especially during the academic agenda. So something that was very important for us was to contribute to have the largest MIT delegation at the Biodiversity Convention. We have over 10 MIT delegates from different programs at MIT, led by the MIT Environmental Solution Initiative, more than 15 events across the blue zone, the official zone, the green zone, and the academic agenda. And I want to highlight the participation of Professor John Fernandez, who was having a presentation about the roles of cities in the decarbonization strategy and how to contribute to biodiversity conservation. And it was part of the official agenda that the city has for the city summits during the COP16. My co-worker, Marcela Angel, who were presenting the result of two studies that I want to show deeply after about the carbon markets in Colombia and the equitable participation for ethnic communities, and Professor Sarah Berry, who were talking about the use of artificial intelligence to monitor biodiversity. So how our research work contributed for the COP, and specifically what were the research that we were working. So we were working in three areas, as I mentioned, as part of the Afro-Inter-American Forum on Climate Change. We present a set of recommendations for the agenda of Afro-descendants in the Biodiversity Convention. What we were trying was to combine experience from different countries, of different organizations, of the African diaspora in Latin America, of the Caribbean, that were working in environmental protection, the implementation of natural-based solutions, and also new financial instruments that allow those communities to implement new policies for the preservation of natural resources and to foster sustainable development. And we conceptualize a proposal for the Biogeographic Chocó Region. Is the proposal that I will explain deeply. And we present the result of the research that we have been working about equitable carbon markets in Colombia, which is a research that intends to provide a set of recommendations for all the authors of the value chains of the carbon markets in Colombia to guarantee better conditions for the participation of indigenous peoples and Afro-descendant communities in terms of benefit sharing. And what was our main contribution to COP16? So first of all, we are very excited to announce that we were very important to contribute for the action plans for Afro-descendant communities in the COP16. Our 7 proposals were included as part of the official recommendation that United Nations adopted for the Declaration of Afro-descendant Peoples in the COP16 for the biodiversity conservation. And 2 very important. We support the city of Cali to create a coalition of cities of the Biogeographic Chocó Region that will support the creation of new policies to preserve this strategic ecosystem. But it's the first time that the cities from this region, from different countries, will work together to have an action plan to protect this important ecosystem. And finally, we support the Colombian government and the Latin American Development Bank, CAF, to conceptualize what was launched as the Biogeographic Chocó Fund, what will be a new financial instrument that will support Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, and Costa Rica to implement a new agenda for this region. So what is this new agenda that we are proposing for the Biogeographic Chocó as an ecological corridor? So this new agenda has been working with two co-workers, Pablo Palacio, who is a PhD in biology from Universidad Javeriana in Bogota, Marcela Angels, who is the research program director at MIT-SI. And we have been working in redefining boundaries of this strategic ecosystem as an ecological corridor, but also to establish a set of recommendations for the states to facing historical threats in this ecosystem. So what is the Biographic Chocó? So the Biographic Chocó is an ecoregion that is composed by at least 5 countries. Traditionally, define his delimitations between the frontier between Panama and Costa Rica at the Pacific coast, the entire Panama, the entire Pacific coast in Colombia, and the entire Pacific coast in Ecuador, and part of the northern part of the Peru. And why is so important the Biographic Chocó? This region is very important because of the concentration of high biological diversity. Specifically, this is the region in the planet that concentrates 25% of endemic species and is the highest concentration of endemic species by kilometer globally. Specifically with reptiles, this region has been very important for research about cancer treatments. Most of the very famous labs in Germany and other countries that are working to find cancer treatment has been using animals from the Biogeographic Chocó. But also this region is very important in terms of biodiversity because of their mangroves, who played a key role with the capture of carbon emissions that allow to tackle climate change. But this region has the visibility globally, even it is one of the most important ecosystems in the world, and even when it was included between the 25 biodiversity hotspots that require urgent actions to be preserved. As part of our research, we want to propose a new delimitation of this region according with the species distribution model. What we did was we take 20 different species that are living in the Chocó Biogeographic region, and we create a model distribution for each of one according with the mobility of extension of these species. The reason is because a species doesn't understand political borders. They just live in an ecosystem, and also ecosystem that press services for the humanity doesn't understand what is a geographical border. So what we did was to combine those distribution models for the 20 species to propose a new delimitation of the region that is able to face with, I will say, in a more strategic way, the threats of the region. And I'm going to explain deeply what are the threats of the region. So according with this distribution model that take into account 20 species and combine the 20 species distribution, our proposal is to think in a biological corridor that includes now 2 more countries and bigger area of Costa Rica has been traditionally delimited the Chocó Biogeographic region. And why? Because we had identified the presence of the same factors of threats in this natural corridor, but also this species has demonstrated in the distribution model that they are occupying all this space, and all of this is recognized as a biodiversity hotspot. So what are the main trends that the Biographic Chocó is facing right now? The first one is illegal economies. And in terms of illegal economies, we have obviously illicit crops in this area of the world, illegal mining, the migration crisis in the Daré, who has a direct relation with the United States, and wildlife trafficking. And in terms of the rapid urbanization, also the unplanned urbanizations linked to economic bounds also cause deforestation and the migration flows. What is happening in this region? As you can see, this region has lost more than 23,000 kilometers of forest during the last 20 years. Having a high concentration of deforestation in countries like Nicaragua, also in Colombia and Ecuador. And it's part of a biodiversity hotspot that has been losing forests during the last 20 years. In terms of illicit crops, what we had identified in general terms of the illegal economy is that it has been very difficult to have updated data that allows us to identify the dimension of the problem. So what we do was to identify all the official data that we found from the countries to have the more updated database possible about how the illegal economies are affecting this region. So in the case of Colombia particularly, the 40% of the illicit crop are concentrated in this region, which is plus 94,000 hectares of illicit crop, but something that is obviously a direct relation is the increase of violence in the region because of illicit crops. And after we review the homicide rates, we can identify in countries like Colombia and Ecuador that the homicide rate is higher in the cities that are located in the Chocó Biogeographic in this region where we have a high presence of illicit crops, and it coincides with cities with high presence of Afro-descendants in Ecuador and in Colombia. This is the case of cities like Quibdó, Tumaco, and Buenaventura in Colombia, and this is the case of cities like Esmeralda and San Lorenzo in Ecuador. So this is a direct relation between the presence of illicit crops, the concentration of Afro-descendant population in those territories, socioeconomic challenges, and a biodiversity hotspots in urgent needs. In terms of illegal mining, something that also is a main concern is that more than 65% of the gold trade in this region is illegal. That means that we don't have clear data that allows to understand how is the commercialization of gold and mineral in this region, but the presence of illegal mining has been affecting the health of local communities. We find a study for WWS that allowed to demonstrate that in the city of Quibdó in Colombia, plus than 50% of people that was part of an analysis demonstrate mercury concentrations on their hair over the recommended limits because of the increase of illegal mining in the territory. But another thing that we identified during this research is we don't have clear information about the number of hectares that have been degraded by illegal mining in the region, not even in Ecuador, not even in Colombia, and the other countries of the region. In terms of the migration crisis, we don't find results that upsets what is happening in terms of environmental degradation because of the migration crisis in the subregion of Darién, which is at the border between Colombia and Panama. As you know, most of the people that is crossing the Darién, they had the expectation to came to the US. And the numbers, the official numbers demonstrate that plus that 300,000 people has crossed in the Darien forest in the last 2 years. While we definitely identify this crisis leads to illegal logging, to open trails and camps, and the contamination of water sources, and the destruction of the species habitat, and obviously the spread of disease transmitted by migrants, but there are not real research that allow to demonstrate what is the dimension of this affectation in the region. And as another threat for the region is unplanned urbanization linked to economic bounce, especially for the migratory flows and also for the illegal mining, contributes to deforestation and degradation of primary forests and mangroves in the city, and the loss of endemic species habitat and the emission of polluting agents. So finally, what we did after having this clear data about the situation of the Biodiversity Chocó region was to propose a set of recommendations for the states during the COP16 and for the creation of this cities coalition. I just want to be back to show that the city coalitions right now contemplate the main cities in this ecosystem. So it is composed by Cali, the Panama City, Buenaventura, Tumaco, Esmeralda, Guayaquil, San Jose, and Limón in Costa Rica. And the recommendation that we present for the coalition, but also for the meeting of Minister of Foreign Affairs of these countries, is focused in three main objectives. The first one is transnational actions. So it's necessary to strengthen the law enforcement's capacity to address environmental crises because, as we explained, the main threats are associated with illegal economies. It's very important the creation of new financing models for conservation with cross-country collaboration, especially in the frontier between Colombia and Panama, where we had the migration crisis, and between Colombia and Ecuador. And something that we are working from the Environmental Solution Initiative is in the creation of a science panel to promote original research for the Biodiversity Chocó region, taking as a model other science panels that has been creating for a strategic ecosystem like the Amazon and the Congo Belt. The second objectives are focused on local and regional actions, especially urban and environmental planning, how to advance in participatory planning for natural-based solutions, especially in local communities in the Biodiversity Chocó region, updating planning instruments for adaptation in the municipalities, how to support the infrastructure and monitoring capacities of those municipalities, specifically early warning systems and biodiversity monitoring technology, investment on science, technology, and innovation at the local levels, and mapping and managing of genetic diversity, what was one of the main topics during the COP16, specifically about how to create new financial instruments to compensate biodiverse countries that have genetic diversity, but they don't have the capacity to create products from genetic diversity. And finally, and most importantly, in terms of community actions, how to create products and services for the generation of local bioeconomy opportunities. Because as we identify, we don't see in any of the municipalities that are part of the coalition the strong capacities to create new financial mechanisms for local community, especially Afro-descendant communities and indigenous people, to incubate and have technical capacities for green businesses that allow communities to live in their territories, conserving biodiversity, but at the same time to having economic opportunities to improve their quality of life. And in terms of community-based conservation, should be very important to have a plan options for mangrove restoration, restoration of areas degraded by illegal mining, food security initiative, community biodiversity management plans, and traditional knowledge transfer, because as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, those communities has played a key role preserving biodiversity as a way to implement their cultural heritage in ways of life that preserve natural resources. And finally, participatory science is very important to involve local communities. And I want to announce that as part of the Afro-Inter-American Forum on Climate Change, we're gonna launch next week in the city of Quibdó, our first pilot of participatory science, which will be a database of biodiversity in the city of Quibdó that we're going to build with local institutions transferring capacities. So those three recommendations has been incorporated in the action plan for the coalition of city, and we're going to be working during 2025 as a technical secretariat of the coalition of the city for the Chocó Biogeographic region, and also supporting the Latin American Bank of Development, CAF, in the conceptualization of the Biogeographic Chocó Fund that was created during the COP16. Thank you all for being here. And our research group, as I mentioned, is composed by researchers from the Universidad Javeriana, especially Pablo Palacios, and from MIT Environmental Solution Initiative with the leadership of Professor John Fernandez and Marcela. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Angélica. Is it on? Oh, there it goes. Thank you, Angélica. So we have time to take some questions. Paulina, are there any questions in the chat? How about in person? Folks have any questions, comments?
Thank you for your talk. Can you explain a little more detail on the early warning system? How does it works?
Okay, I don't know, Marcela, if you want to help me that. But Marcela has been working in a pilot project in Mocoa in Colombia, which is an early warning system, creating using technology, but creating capacity with local communities and local institutions to monitor that early system. So Marcela can deeply explain all the technical condition of the early system.
So in the city of Mocoa, located in the Amazon Piedmont, there was a devastating landslide in 2017. So we have been supporting the city to explore the use of new technologies to provide inputs for the early warning system on the city so that they can evacuate in case of landslides. So that's the type of early warning systems that would be relevant for the region, as other cities, particularly also in the Pacific, Andean, Piedmont, are facing similar risks from land movement, land erosion, and landslides.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
Hi, I'm Donna Sturton from CSAIL, and I'm originally from the Caribbean, so I know a lot about the region. And I just wanted to know, in terms of educating the people, do you have like participatory research in terms of when you're looking at community actions and how the people in the area, being educated about what's going on in their country? Thank you.
Excellent. So as part of the work of the Afro-Inter-American Forum on Climate Change, we have been creating a network that combines the capacity of environmentalists, social innovators, policymakers, and researchers. And what we're looking is to create comprehensive projects that allow to educate local communities, but also to support those local communities in the formulation of natural-based solution projects and other type of projects that allow them to continue conserving their natural resources. And part of the goals that we have for the next years, it has to build a strong pipeline of projects, also focus on education. One of the projects that we have from a leader, from an Afro-Colombian environmental leader in Chocó, in the city of Nuquí, is to create a center for local education in biodiversity, thinking in how people globally can go to Nuquí in Chocó to learn about biodiversity.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Yes.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Are there particular difficulties with getting countries like, let's say, Costa Rica and Peru, or who don't share a natural border, to work together? And how did you navigate some of those difficulties?
Well, that's a very difficult point. So we took advantage to be in a COP as a way to have the possibility to meet delegations from all the countries. There is one instrument called CEMAR, which is an instrument, a platform created by most of the countries in Latin America that share the Pacific coast, but they have been focused only in the expansion of marine protected areas. Our proposal with the fund and the coalition is how to can have a broad approach of the ecosystem, just not thinking in how to increase the marine protected areas, but thinking in a more comprehensive way with the three recommendations that we present. But we understand that we need to work in different levels. The coalition is for cities because it's the local, the municipalities and the first level in terms of administrative functions. But the fund is for the countries, thinking in that we need to work with the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of International Relations. And finally, which is more challenging still, is how to work together with different organizations, local organizations for the countries. Part of the approach that we have done is throughout the organization from the African diaspora in the region, because as I mentioned, the highest population of Afro-descendants in Latin America is concentrated in this region. And from the movement of Afro-descendant rights, we have find the great partners to work with local communities in this region.
Thank you. Other comments or questions in Zoom or in person?
Thank you so much. I'm so proud of the amazing work that you have done during the COP16 and also working with the communities. So you mentioned that one of the big challenges is actually all the illegal activities. Like, what are some of the strategies that you have been thinking to try to combat those challenges?
Well, as we mentioned, those are transnational crimes: illegal mining, drug trafficking, the migration crisis. So it will be very difficult to see solution from the countries, just for one country's perspective or just from community perspectives. That's why our first recommendation is in terms of transboundary actions, how to bring together competence from the states, first with the law enforcement agenda, but also is very related with the creation of new economic sustainable opportunities for local communities. Because if we have better conditions in terms of economic opportunities for local communities in this biodiversity hotspot, we will have less percentage of young population going to the illicit activities. So it had to be a mix between the law enforcement and to create new capacities for economic sustainable opportunities.
You addressed part of my question in your answer just now. This was a question about the new financial models you had discussed. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Yes. There is something very important that I forgot to mention, which is collective property in this area of the region. Ecuador, Colombia, Peru, and Costa Rica have recognized collective lands for indigenous peoples in the Chocó Biogeographic. And Colombia and Ecuador also recognize the same type of collective lands for Afro-descendants. But this kind of property has been very successful in terms of environmental protection, because when we evaluate deforestation rates in the collective properties, they have lower rates than in similar territories that are not protected by ethnic communities. But it has some limitations because the state haven't created financial conditions to develop those collective lands. So basically, those lands has legal restrictions that didn't allow ethnic communities to be part of the private financial systems. So they are limited to the state transfers, and it has been very inefficient to create productive activities or to invest in conservation activities. So we have a concentration of monetary poverty in the places with the higher nature richness. And what we are thinking as a new mechanism is something that we see in the Canadian system, which is a fund of guarantees that the national government has to support local communities to be able to obtain loans from the private financial system.
Thank you. So we have a comment from Zoom. This is from Christine Taylor Butler. This is such a great project. So just want to relay that. Kudos to you. Other comments or questions? This is such a great follow-up to what we had last year. So thank you again for all the updates. And we're eager to continue to hear more about future updates as well. I have a question. How is participatory planning for nature-based solutions being implemented?
So we haven't implemented yet a project with one of the communities that we're working, but as I mentioned, part of what we want to do is to create a pipeline of projects, providing technical support to the Afro-descendant organizations that we're supporting, especially in Colombia, Panama, and Honduras, to build this pipeline of projects.
Thank you. I think that's all we have for comments and questions. So thank you so much, Angélica. We really appreciate it. And those joining us virtually and in person, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next month. Again, 2 more presentations before the year ends. We hope that you sign up. Go check our website, ico.mit.edu, for future events and programming. Thank you and have a good rest of your afternoon.